Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day. Jennifer is grateful for the opportunity to educate, empower, and inspire you with powerful conversations, insights, and new viewpoints. Here's your host, Jennifer J. Hammond.
I'm always interested in helping you make good decisions in real estate. And so my next guest here, he's been in the Washington, D.C. area, as we call a Washingtonian, for a very long time. And he has an online real estate settlement company. And we will talk so much about that. But one of the biggest things I want to say, first of all, welcome, Carlos Reyes. He is with Smart Settlements. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, we've had so many changes, especially in the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. We call it affectionately the DMV, and that is not the driver's license place. Often confused in other parts of the country. But I wanted to ask you, so what are the three things that have really changed? And in some ways, I think it's helped us make leaps forward. But with the pandemic, our industry has definitely changed, but definitely settlements have taken, I think, a leap forward in a lot of ways. So will you talk about what are the three biggest impacts that you've seen and changes in the settlement real estate arena?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. But I have to say, there's been, in terms of technology, it's been mind-blowing. But first, I'm going to start with something non-technical, and it's kind of the human tendency, right? So the human tendency to focus on our natural habits, right? And kind of mentally, we put up these blocks where we think to ourselves, this is the way it should be done, right? So the industry as a whole, and I'm referring to the real estate industry, has been one where it's been a large ship. It's a cruise ship that slowly turns. You've had a lot of tech companies, a lot of venture capitalists in the past couple of years come in to try to not so much disrupt, but more make more efficient our industry. And what happened was these technologies were finally accepted, adopted, and used, right? It's almost like forcing somebody to do what we're currently doing now, right? It's a Zoom meeting, right? So you have that's what we saw. So there was a mental shift in understanding there are different ways to do and facilitate real estate transactions.
And I would say, I think it from my experience with my clients, it has really been an incredible help in so many ways. And like you said, I've watched our industry always be so slow to adopt the new technologies. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I'm excited about the changes.
Yeah, so here's some technologies that have been really exciting to use. So one of which is called Zachem. And I'll kind of sequentially bring you through what the consumer can expect if they're not using it now, what to look forward to. So checks. So when you submit an actual contract, you want to buy or sell a home, you have to leave a deposit, right? That's called the earnest money deposit. Those monies were normally given in check format or wired over, both of which were either a nuisance or cost money and have the ability to have fraud. So Zachem is a technology where they came out and they instead of doing consumer to consumer like a Venmo or a Cash App or PayPal, they actually did consumer to business, but in an escrow setting. So for example, you can buy a home if you were to do a cash transaction, you can literally do it on your phone. So you can send the money in a secured format directly to our escrow accounts. So it's proprietary. It's the only software. So unlike the examples I gave before, this is the only software in real estate that allows you to do that. So you never have to worry about how am I going to get these escrow funds, to the company. So that's one. Second is online notarization, so called remote online notarization, so RON. Okay.
Yay!
So for the longest period, we were all using electronic signatures, and electronic signatures were actually nationally accepted by law, right? But banks were not accepting them. In certain jurisdictions where you actually record your documents, were not accepting them. So what happens? A lot of friction. Some people yes, some people no. It never happened. Then COVID happened, right? Where it had to be low touch, and we had to actually start leveraging technologies. So two things happened. You had electronic recordings. So counties that didn't normally electronically record, they would manually record and stamp, shifted to electronic recordings. And second, the RON, so remote online notarization, was accepted through the majority of lenders, still not full blanket, but this is, again, trending in the right direction, right? We had lenders actually accept this, which allowed consumers to buy, sell, or refinance electronically. And guess what happens? I mean, it becomes more efficient. You save the consumer time. In some cases, you can save the consumer money. So these kinds of technologies, and this is something that I want to say to the industry as a whole, is not something that we should run away from, because a lot of people think, we are going to be automated and we're going to be replaced. But the one thing that I can say through 10 years of teaching, specifically with personal development, you have individuals that are going through an emotional purchase. And unlike selecting a pair of shoes, in real estate transactions, people pay to be led, and they want to make sure that the human element is still part of this transaction. So I can emphasize time and time again, although there will be some people that don't necessarily need the guidance, and that's perfectly fine, that's not the majority, right? The majority of people need to be led. So we should embrace these technologies, right? And these are some that overall just make the experience much better and safer, right, in terms of fraud and personal information for the consumer and the company.
And I think you're right. There's so often people are looking for, in residential real estate especially, people are looking for the human element. I mean, even right now with a lot of these multiple offer situations in the Washington, D.C. area, people are looking for the human element, and they're not favoring necessarily the real estate investor, because they're looking for someone who is looking to move into their home and make their neighborhood a home. And so that human element of helping somebody and guiding somebody through the process, so that, again, I think all of us are a bit, sometimes not excited about having, when you call customer service for something, you hit, number 1, then you hit number 3, then you hit number 7. And what is it, 10, 15 minutes later, you actually get to talk to a live person, maybe, and maybe they're knowledgeable or maybe they're not. And, we like a certain amount of automatic anything, but then we also really want the human element. We want someone that we can look at, we can trust, and we know is going to actually get us to our finish line and our goal, whatever that may be. And then obviously in real estate, that closing, that settlement is that finish line when you get handed the keys, or you hand the keys to your buyer.
That's exactly right. And there's certain parts of the transaction that don't need as much guidance. And those aspects of the transaction will be automated. And again, that's great for the consumer. We need to accept and we need to understand that's something that's going to happen. We no longer have yard sales. You have eBay and Craigslist. You no longer have other industries, and you have other efficient ways of doing things. But the one thing that I realized, when you're dealing with the most expensive, and for many people, the largest purchase of their life, or one of them, they want to make sure to pay people, and that's something that can't get replaced, to lead them in the right direction. And I give this example time and time again. If you get sued, or if you're in a lawsuit, will you go to LegalZoom, or will you go to a referred attorney to represent you? And I think there's a place and time for both. I just know that, the one thing that we've seen is, people depend on people when it matters, because they need different perspectives and opinions and understanding neighborhoods and layouts, and you understanding what's best for your client. Even as a real estate, putting my real estate agent lens on, you have to understand what your client's needs are. And AI and technology is not going to understand traffic patterns, what your family dynamic looks like, where your job is, how long you plan on staying there, where you are mentally, how you look financially. There's a lot.
Exactly. I mean, I was thinking about when you said AI, there's so much artificial intelligence in so many of the apps that we have. And so often, I hear people say, oh, I don't need a real estate agent anymore because I have all the technology and I can just look through it. And then I realize I have all my clients always come back and say, oh my gosh, artificial intelligence could never replace you because, and one of the things you just mentioned is I always give them homework assignments. My buyers and my sellers, on all sorts of things that artificial intelligence couldn't do because, again, of that human factor. And we do like automation. We do like it to be simple. We like our lives to be simple, but we need that human element. And so I didn't get a chance to really share with people who you are. So I want to talk about that. You kind of have, well, you have multiple hats, but the two main hats, of course, is the settlement company, Smart Settlement. So I'd love you to chat a little bit about that. And then let's turn the corner about the development, real estate development. You've more than dipped your toe. I mean, you've done this very successful as well. So if you would talk about both of these two different aspects of real estate in your life.
Sure. So, the settlement company I've now had for over almost 20 years. 5 years ago, I committed myself to actually make it the best company in the DMV.
Yay!
And that actually started with a long process with understanding who is our client, not just now, but also who is our client 10 years from now, and creating an actual brand that people are proud of and that can actually represent quality that they want to be a part of. So I'm proud to say the following. 5 years ago, Smart Settlements didn't even have a ranking in the DMV. 5 years later, we have 20% market share in the DMV. So 1 out of 5 transactions that close at our company. And we did this all organically, not through acquisition, not through paying or joint ventures. We have none of that. We actually did it with establishing a brand and having that brand represent quality, and we give an impeccable transaction to not just the consumer but also our clients, which are real estate agents and lenders. So we understood that pricing is also a pain point for many, so we effectively became very competitive on pricing. So when you give great service and great price and you understand who you are and don't try to recreate yourself, great things happen. So
Absolutely.
That's who we are. We've done over 25,000 settlements. We're in Virginia, Maryland, DC, Florida, and can do residential and commercial transactions. So in a nutshell, that's who we are. In terms of technologies for title, I sit on a variety of boards. I'm an adapter of, I'm almost like a venture capitalist when it comes to title software, title tech. I've invested in a variety of different efforts, but like I said, I believe in the blend, not in the replacement. So that's title. On the development side, I am proud to say I'm a born native. I was born in Alexandria, Virginia. My father's Colombian, my mother's Bolivian, but I was born here. I went to George Mason University. I went to Langley High School. I had the awesome blessing of actually being exposed to probably one of the most dynamic real estate markets in the nation. And I started off with just renovating single family houses and almost doing the flip this house, which you see on TV. That's not really how. But from there, we went to expansion of single families, then new construction of single families. Then I shifted over to higher density development. So I started doing condo conversion in the city. We also started doing co-live space. So as many of us know, WeWork, it's like co-workspace.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I wanted to start developing in the city is a higher end shared community living space that actually worked really well, because when you think about where prices are and how hard it is to kind of achieve that, because it is very expensive to buy here in the DC metro area, some people wanted to kind of be at the same level peers in a rental environment, and that's what we created. So we've now developed over $1 billion in development, and we currently have double-digit developments happening right now. It's amazing to be a part of. I've I was at the yards this past weekend for the 4th of July, seeing the level of development. You have the Wharf, you have City Center, you have Old Town, you have, I mean, it's endless, and it's continuing. Ivy City, it's continuing to grow. Historic Anacostia is expanding. It's endless. I just say that we're blessed. Anyone in the real estate industry here is absolutely blessed to be a part of it, because there's no other city that's having this amount of development.
So Carlos, I'm curious, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is new and just starting out? Because I talked to a lot of those, and they are many of the listeners who are just starting, as you kind of jokingly saying, flip this house. They're just starting with one, or they're starting to do their first condo conversion of like a 3-unit apartment building into 3 condos. And whether, obviously, each jurisdiction, DC and Virginia, Maryland, they're definitely very different how you do that. But what advice would you give? I know a lot of yours are with partners or partnerships, even with others. What would you suggest? What are some of the key things that someone should know getting into it?
I think first you need to understand two things. There's 2 major components when you come to identifying how to play in real estate. And one is, how much time do you have? Okay, so if I'm 20, it's different than if I'm 40, which is different than if I'm 60. Because if you can buy and stabilize an asset and just wait, okay, if you have time, there's no way you're going to lose. I actually, I'm the managing member. I started a real estate fund that's also based here in DC, where we lend capital to developers. And I get asked this question a lot, right? They ask me how to scale, what to buy, where to buy, because they're completely capable. They have the construction companies, right? So the answer to the question is time. And second is cost of capital. So if you have access to capital, and there's different buckets. There's your own, which is at 0% interest. There's commercial for 5.25. You have friends and family that are at 8 to 10%, and then private lending that's 10 and up, 10 to 15. Understanding those two things, I almost walk each project through that, right? So I'll say, okay, I want to buy a rental property. Am I going to buy it with my cash, and how much time do I have? Okay, I'm going to flip this property. Am I going to buy it with the commercial bank? Am I going to buy it with family and friends? Am I going to buy it with friends? So you have to, every single project you're going to have to walk through and identify which bucket works best. But if you don't have time and you don't have capital, I highly recommend don't do it. Okay. It is definitely expensive to start playing here in any major metropolitan city, really. But it's, I mean, prices have not cooled down, and they won't. I mean, they really won't. Now you have a blend in terms of our local economy, where you went, it used to be, federal government's our largest employer, which they still are, but now you have tech companies, international companies, venture capitalist companies. You have many companies identifying that all of the talent, the local talent that we've been dispersing for the past 50 years across the US is here. And we have the abundance of universities that originates all this talent that all the employers want.
Yeah.
So it's not going to slow down anytime soon. But to answer your question, understand how much time you have and what your cost of capital is. And please feel free. We actually have mentoring sessions within our fund, where if somebody wants to get involved and they want to start investing, they can partner with a local developer and we'll lend the money. And, that way they'll have a successful project and they can have hands-on experience in understanding, what the sequence really looks like.
And Carlos, I'd love to have you back on for another episode, and let's just focus on that. Some tips for people who are just starting out, because I think that is the question I get emailed and instant messaged, and all more than any other question is starting out, those mentoring steps. So I know I've got to run, but I want to make sure people know how to get a hold of Smart Settlements and how can they utilize your services.
Sure. So smartsettlements.com is www.smartsettlements with an S at the end, plural.com. www.smartsettlements.com. You can also reach out to me as well. My email is Carlos, CARLOS @smartsettlements.com. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. I love being a resource.
Well, and I thank you for all that you're doing, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. That's one of the things that I think is so important, is to continue to pay it forward, because we all started somewhere and we need to share it. So as I say in every single episode, will you raise your voice and say yay with me?
Absolutely.
3, 2, 1. Yay!
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And if you want more help in getting from where you are to where you want to be, I want to encourage you to listen to the Jennifer Hammond Show